welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
This is season 3 of our podcast, where every single week we take all the internet's content, we dump it into the randomizer, we fire it up, and the randomizer will choose a show for us to watch. And we got a deep cut here.
Yeah, I would actually think that your first inclination was correct, and that this week it is the Razomizer. This is something else. Honestly, when the randomizer first pulled this, I don't know if you had this feeling, but I did. This skirted the borderline of free feed
or Patreon
or Patreon/Apple Podcast bonus content. But every once in a while, we got to get something a little more off the beaten path than even the usual episode. And we are dipping back in to the Coliseum home video as well, which we've gone to a few times here on the free feed and quite a few times on the bonus audio. This is one for the ages.
I remember going to my local video store in the late 80s, early 90s.
What was the name of your local video store, by the way? I'm always amused by the
closest one to me was Action Video.
Action Video.
I could walk to Action Video.
We had Video Circle, and next to Video Circle was the greatest candy store that ever existed, Greco's.
Nice.
Which had, to this day, the best sour gummy worms I've ever had in my entire life.
Action Video had the wrestling section where they had 2 rows dedicated to wrestling videotapes. Of course, almost all of them put out by Coliseum Video. And they were the big events, the WrestleManias, if you will, eventually the SummerSlams and Survivor Series. But they were also the straight-to-video releases that they would do, the compilation tapes, such as this one, WWF SuperTape Volume 4 from 1991. Fun fact about Action Video, though, before we move on to the tape. When they went out of business, they were selling all of their VHS tapes. I, who did not live in the same town anymore, went back to the town to say, I'd like to buy all of your wrestling tapes.
Oh, my God.
And I bought the entire collection of wrestling videos from Action Video. Had them on display in my in my bachelor pad back in the 2000s. Good times. There was another video store in the town over, Mokina Video, and I went there and I said, "Hey, I just bought out Action Video. What do you give me for your whole wrestling collection?" And they said, "Not for sale," and they refused to sell to me.
Wow. It's some parallels between that and when you tried to buy the NWA World Television Championship belt a few years ago on the convention circuit and were rebuffed. I will also say that from your description of what you did during that time, it was clear that you were not trying to date. or were you just so confident? Were you giving yourself the challenge? I'm going to put all these videos out in plain view and women will still flock to me.
It's amazing. It's amazing the confidence in the game I had that I could put out wrestling videotapes, wrestling chairs, and all the decor of my bachelor pad. But yeah, no, that's another podcast for another time. Here we've got the intro with some random highlights, generic music, and then Sean Mooney and some generic dude are leaving a building. He's told to deliver the master copy of SuperTape Volume 4.
He also has a cooler, which I remember. I had the exact same cooler my family did growing up, that white and red small cooler. He's transporting something. I don't know if it's an organ in addition to this tape. I am just so distracted because this other random person just called Sean Mooney Babe.
He did. And
I was like, that's pretty cool. I want to know more.
Yeah, the cooler had sandwiches and sodas in it for the journey to Coliseum Video to bring the master copy there. Now, Mooney...
I refuse to believe that. I think it had kidneys.
Mooney gets into the, quote, official van. It's basically just a random conversion van, like a Tony Danza from Who's the Boss conversion van.
And I thought we were dating ourselves by reviewing WWF Coliseum Home Video Super Tape 4, and then you bring out a Who's the Boss Tony Danza reference, and we now have an NXT 2.0 level demo for the rest of this podcast.
Oh, if you know, you know. The driver
if you don't, good for you, because you're not as old as we are.
The driver of the van is Lord Alfred Hayes, and he tells Sean Mooney no food or drink allowed in the van. Leave that cooler behind. And we go to our first matchup, the Intercontinental Championship on the line. We've got 2 title matches on this tape. The first one being the Intercontinental Championship, the champion, Mr. Perfect, and his amazing theme song.
Oh, yes. One of the best, maybe I'd say top 4 or 5 WWF theme songs of all time.
Absolutely. It's on the Mount Rushmore for sure. His opponent, the challenger, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich.
Yes, a childhood favorite of mine, as we've talked about before on this podcast. Pre-WWF and world class. Mr. Perfect, also one of the few guys I was a really big fan of, along with Bret Hart growing up in the WWF. So I'm excited to see this. I'm also excited because before the match begins, we get one of the things that you and I both love, the green screen background interview with Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan with the Mr. Perfect logo in background. It's as if they are big time wrestling fans doing a Zoom call in modern times. This is pretty good stuff.
The match starts with Mr. Perfect jumping him as he's getting into the ring, clotheslines him over the top to the floor. The Texas Tornado pulls Mr. Perfect to the floor, hits the discus punch on the outside.
The first of many times. That is clearly, along with the claw, but that is even more than the claw, the main offense here for the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah, back inside, Kerry throws him right back outside over the top. And then they get back in the ring again, and Perfect gets sent into the buckles. He bounces out of the corner into a discus punch, but body shot version.
Yes, the Mr. Perfect bumping for Texas Tornado here is, like, spoiler alert, probably my favorite in-ring thing of this show. He
by a mile.
Before his back problems really began, you talk about Mount Rushmore as far as guys bumping and selling for other guys that aren't maybe as good, and like straddling that line of cartoonish sort of overselling or over bumping, but it just doesn't cross that line. It's great. That would be Mr. Perfect here.
Yeah, he gets sent in the buckles again. He does a full flip out of the corner, and Kerry Von Erich puts on the claw, but Mr. Perfect breaks it by going right to the eyes.
Imagine, I guess the best way to describe this, if you haven't seen Mr. Perfect do this, but you have seen an Arn Anderson match, when Arn Anderson would like come off the second rope going for an axe handle and would get punched in the stomach and would do a somersault bump off of that.
Exactly.
That is what Mr. Perfect does here, but it's just off of an Irish whip into the corner.
A sleeper by Perfect. Tornado gets out. He tries to hit the discus punch, but Mr. Perfect blocks it and keeps the advantage. Perfect takes the turnbuckle pad off, or kind of just pulls it down to expose the buckle. He tries to ram Kerry face first into the buckle. That is blocked. He hits another discus punch, and Mr. Perfect goes over the top to the floor. On the outside, he tries the punch again, but this time punches the ring post.
Yes, and we hear a loud sound that matches up pretty well, but I'm skeptical when we go back to other shows that we've watched of WWF from this time period, whether it be with a cattle prod or was it a chair shot? There was something else where someone hit a post. It's just that I think guy just got posted head first, and we had this hilarious sound that clearly wasn't the real sound. That may have been the case here.
Yeah, I did not believe that sound at all, but I also didn't believe that the master tape made it to post production here.
Yeah.
So with Sean Mooney, so it totally is possible. Back inside, Perfect sends him head first into the post.
This is really weird too, because it's the corner that has the removed top turnbuckle pad. It's gone. It's just the exposed seal. But Perfect takes him to that corner and throws him into the post instead of the removed turnbuckle.
Yeah, he hits the post and then goes for the Perfect Plex, But the Texas Tornado kicks out of Mr. Perfect's Perfect Plex.
Before that, my favorite part of the Perfect Plex is always when Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, would hook his man and then yell, "Now you're going to see a Perfect Plex."
That's right.
And then hit it.
Turns towards the hard camera and hits the Perfect Plex.
A true pro. But yeah, I did not expect at all Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich to kick out of this. You did not see that happen very often.
No, he then puts the claw on again. Perfect is fading, but he grabs the ref and pulls the ref into himself.
Yeah, as we go through this, I have thoughts. This does not make a whole lot of sense. And Lord Alfred Hayes, by the end of this segment, I think is coming to the same conclusion that I did.
Texas Tornado then hits the punch again. His hand
twice.
No worse for wear after punching the ring post.
Yes.
This is still his main. He had no problems throwing on a claw. He had no problems hitting the punch again. He gets a long 2 count, and Mr. Perfect kicks out. So the match continued after the ref was pulled into Mr. Perfect here. Texas Tornado went for a pin. The ref counted to 2. Perfect kicked out. Then there's a couple more punches, and the bell just rings. And I'm like, what happened? The ref DQ'd Mr. Perfect and then gave the match to Texas Tornado by disqualification. I don't understand why he counted the pin. This was a really weird ending.
It was very strange. Lord Alfred Hayes says that was a very late judgment by the referee, and he is 100% correct. Because again, just let's briefly, succinctly recap the sequence of events. We have Mr. Perfect grab the ref, throw the ref into himself to get out of the claw hold. Then Texas Tornado hits the tornado punch, the discus punch, goes for the cover. The ref dramatically crawls over while he still is somewhat injured. Counts 2. Mr. Perfect kicks out. Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, then throws 2 more discus punches, and then the ref rings the bell. My first thought was, oh my God, did we get a closed fist disqualification? I did not think that was possible, but it was the only logical thing because I couldn't fathom that we would have a DQ on that much of a delay after, like you said, the attempt of counting the pinfall. I guess you could say that the ref was trying, knowing what Perfect did, the ref was trying to give Kerry a chance to legitimately win the title.
But then,
and not have it be disqualified. But then why would he just disqualify it now while Kerry was still in the advantage?
Well, he was still on the advantage, right? It's not like Mr. Perfect got the advantage back. So no, it's
exactly.
We've done more to try to put logic to this than they did.
Clearly.
The weird ending rolls into a weird match as we're off to Madison Square Garden for a match between Tito Santana and Coco Beware, a babyface versus babyface match here. 2 good guys going at it. So it was weird.
It was very strange. It's not something you saw very often in the WWF during this time period. I do like that this tape appears to be skipping back and forth between some matches that were taped, exclusive Coliseum home videos, video matches as part of Superstars or Challenge tapings. And then we have matches here that are from, MSG shows, or we'll see Maple Leaf Gardens later on as well. So I always enjoy when we get to see the different buildings and different presentations. But yes, this was strange. What made it entertaining, though, was Bobby Heenan on the call with Sean Mooney, so desperately wanting these 2 men to hate each other and start, throwing fists and really going at it. It actually reminded me of Jesse Ventura in the Z-Man versus Brian Pillman match from Wrestle War 92 for the WCW World Light Heavyweight title. Very similar setup and very similar announcing here. Sean Mooney is on play-by-play again, as he is through the majority of this show. As a play-by-play guy, he's a really good Coliseum home video host.
That's about it. Yeah, this match just back and forth stalemate early. Coco starts to do some subtle heel stuff, claiming a hair pull by Tito.
Yeah, the story is that he's getting frustrated because Tito keeps getting the better of each of these wrestling sequences. Tito wants to shake the hand. Coco says, no, the man pulled my hair when he didn't. And so Bobby's getting, more and more excited that this is a possibility. This happens a second time. The complaining about the hair pull, they start shoving back and forth. It's a full-on shoving match. And Bobby Heenan just says, I like a good divorce.
Coco is the first one to throw a right hand. He posts him, beats him up outside. Coco gets the heat on Tito. He's kicking him as Tito's trying to get up over and over again, and Heenan screams, "This Coco's got spunk."
He also around this time just casually says, after we get a shot of Frankie the Bird at ringside, Coco would look great in or Frankie would look great in a bag of Steak and Shake. And then he asks Sean Mooney what his favorite part of the parrot is.
Coco goes to the top. He misses a fist drop. Santana makes his comeback, hits the flying forearm for the pin. Tito Santana with the win. We go back to the van where Al Hayes claims he knows where he's at all times. Don't you worry. He's
Lord
navigating away.
He's more Lord Alfred Hayes than he ever is here, which is saying something. Like he's playing this almost butler character.
But like he's like a heel butler.
Yes.
Like
yes. It's different for sure, I'll say.
We now get a segment called From the Mat to the Mic.
You texted me a screenshot of this, I believe, or at least
I did.
You sent me a screenshot and you said, "This is wrong."
It bothered me so much. The graphics said "from the mat to the mic," but spelled M-I-K-E, not M-I-C, not like microphone, but Mike the guy.
When I saw this, I thought, man, that would be a great logo for whatever podcast Mike Sempervive will eventually ditch me for, with some unnamed person with the first name Matt.
There you go, Matt to the mic. This is a segment about wrestlers who have become commentators. And so we see the first one's Guerrilla Monsoon, which we get to see some highlights of that airplane spin on Muhammad Ali that we recapped from a previous episode of this podcast. I feel like
on every third show that we watch, we see footage of that. There's one thing we'll see later that's even more egregious as far as being recycled on Coliseum home videos.
Monsoon then cuts a promo saying you'll hear a lot more from him. We see Roddy
saying he's working with Jack Tunney now. So I guess this was the beginnings of him worming his way into taking the kayfabe presidency away from Jack Tunney.
Roddy Piper. We see Piper beating Haku with a belly-to-belly suplex.
I was going to say a sweet belly-to-belly from Roddy Piper. I have no recollection of that. I want to see that match right now.
Piper then rants and raves about being a commentator as I'd like to see him wrestle more than commentate.
Well, that's a theme for several of the guys that we'll see here on this show in the From the Mat to the Mic segment, is guys that are being put out to pasture prematurely for no good reason.
Yes. Here's a guy that didn't make any sense. Mean Gene Okerlund. And they show the one clip from his one match with Hogan against George Animal Steel and Mr. Fuji, which we've seen on this podcast a bunch of times.
This is legitimately the fourth time we've seen some portion of that match on this podcast, all from Coliseum home videos.
Yeah, Gene claims he retired after that one victory. He feels more comfortable on the mic side.
He talks about his previous jobs, which include selling aluminum siding, being a cab driver, and delivering newspapers.
Then we get the Macho Man Randy Savage. We see the end of WrestleMania 7, where Savage is dropping a few elbow drops, and then Savage cuts a promo about how he fought Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Ricky Steamboat, Tito Santana, the Ultimate Warrior, but he lost at WrestleMania 7 and his career was over. And when you saw that clip and you saw everyone else on this tape, you're like, why is that guy not wrestling? He should be so wrestling.
That was my overriding thought as I watched this, just anger that this man was not wrestling. He says he attained everything in his wrestling career due to intensity, and he will do the same as the world's greatest broadcaster. Obviously, neither you nor I could do justice to a Randy Savage promo, but this was great, and it was completely absurd that in 1991 they decided we don't need to have Randy Savage wrestling on our TV program. Let's have him talk.
Before this segment started, Sean Mooney said that we'd see Al Hayes in this package, and I didn't see Lord Alfred Hayes at all. What the hell?
I have that same note as well. We never saw him on this
He's exactly the mat to the mic guy. That's exactly like he had a long career as a broadcaster after a long career as a wrestler. They did not show him at all. Instead, we got that Mean Gene clip.
Yeah, it's very strange. Maybe the most interesting too, because most people wouldn't think of him or don't remember him as a wrestler. Even Guerrilla Monsoon, even though he was a long time ago as well as a wrestler, it happened, high profile in the WWF. So people saw it. People had some sort of institutional knowledge of it. I was very much looking forward to getting more information on Lord Alfred Hayes, the pro wrestler. Instead, what comes up next? We are told by Sean Mooney that
first I was outraged because we did not see Al Hayes in here. I yelled, "Stop this van because this tape is not ready for production. We need to edit this master and remove you telling me that Al Hayes is going to be in this package. This is not done. It's not ready."
Or keep that in, remove the completely unnecessary Gene Okerlund segment, and find some footage of Lord Al talking and
fix that graphic card to get rid of the word Mike.
Yes, absolutely. Particularly since we saw it multiple times throughout the rest of the show. What came next, though? Lorne Goodman of Wichita, Kansas is our, I guess he got to be the randomizer in 1991 and choose the match, the fans' choice match here.
Favorite match.
The fan favorite match. And what out of all the wrestling matches that the WWF had produced, did Lorne Goodman choose for us to see? The Undertaker.
Good choice.
Versus
Good choice.
Tugboat.
No, what? Tugboat. I don't believe this for a second that this was this person's choice at all.
As we'll get to when we see the match, he clearly chose this sight unseen.
We get some engine trouble in the van, and Al Hayes has to pull over. We then go to the ring for the Undertaker's entrance with his manager, Brother Love, to take on Tugboat.
Early Undertaker. I am happy that this time they did not edit his entrance out like they did on that Saturday night's main event show that we reviewed over on the bonus audio feed from right around the same time period, actually, maybe a year prior. I guess it would have been right around here. He comes out, the classic Undertaker music, the super red manager that is Brother Love. Then Tugboat's music hits, and I have flashbacks to Diesel, because this is the seafaring version of Diesel's music, in that it is just incredibly generic, repetitive music with tugboat horns going over and over again.
This match starts with them just running into each other a couple times. Off the ropes, and Taker looked like he was going for a leapfrog, but then just comes down with a knee to the back of the head.
Yeah, we had a few weird things. First, we had a really awkward Irish whip reversal that didn't really fully reverse. And then Undertaker, like you said, he jumps in the air for a leapfrog, but Tugboat doesn't keep running. He just stops. He kind of lands like inside of knee / crotch first on his head. Lord Alfred Hayes, doing the Lord's work here, goes crazy about how incredible this innovative move and counter was by the Undertaker. I'm still having a hard time, though, like focusing on the match, because just the visual of these two men, these two characters, as they're about to lock up, nothing may be a more WWF like absurdist version of pro wrestling than the visual of this tall, at this point, jacked mortician wrestler dressed head to toe in black, except for his like 80s teenage girl ankle warmers over his boots, these gray ankle warmers. And then he's across the ring from the world's most out of shape Popeye cosplayer, and they're about to have a wrestling match. It's the height of ridiculous characters, of everybody in the company being a wrestler that has another job. We've got the wrestling mortician versus the wrestling tugboat captain, which always begs the question, if they're the industry leader, why does everyone have to work a side gig? It just looked so absurd.
We get a back elbow, and Taker is down again. Way too much offense from Tugboat. He missed an elbow drop, and now finally Taker goes to work. Tugboat tries to slam the Undertaker, but falls back. He gets a 2 count.
That is a move that we see a lot here on this show, on this tape. And it's also strange in that Tugboat is like a giant, round man. Undertaker is big, but it does not seem like the type of thing where Tugboat should not be able to body slam the Undertaker.
Taker goes to the top. He does the rope walk, but Tugboat pulls him off the top with a slam. He hits a power slam. What am I watching?
He hits a power slam and somehow injures himself. He took like an All Japan 90s head and neck bump while delivering his own power slam. But no, this is strange. Tugboat is getting a ton of offense. He also,
I was getting Road Warriors, Jimmy Valiant, Mid-Atlantic 83 vibes here.
Yeah, Jimmy Valiant and Pez Watley against the Road Warriors, the most nonsensical, confusing match we've ever reviewed on this podcast. This was veering toward that territory. It's also noteworthy that Tugboat here in 1991 was honestly not much better than the very green Big Boss Man, or the Boss Man, whatever it was that they called him on that This Week in Pro Wrestling tape that we reviewed. Yeah. Where like we're like, oh man, that's green Tugboat. He didn't seem very trained. He did not look much better here.
No, but
he almost looked Shockmaster-esque at times here.
After the power slam, Taker sits up. Tugboat charges in. He misses an avalanche in the corner. Taker does the rope walk, drops an elbow strike for the pin. Weird finish, weird match altogether. Hope this is what you wanted, Lauren Goodman.
It was very strange. And yeah, it was a rope walk into this like throat thrust version of a fist drop. The move itself reminded me immediately of the one Mean Mark match that we watched. I can't remember what show that was, but we watched one Mean Mark Callis match from WCW, and his finisher was a very impressive rope walk into a diving elbow drop. So this is really early Undertaker. There's elements, obviously, of what makes Undertaker himself, but he's pretty green and seems not entirely comfortable in the character yet. And Tugboat just is bad here. This was a strange match.
The strange keeps coming as we get Shawn Michaels, one half of the Rockers, and his partner Marty Jannetty out there with him to take on Demolition Crush with Mr. Fuji.
Demolition Crush. This is during the time period where Crush had initially become a third member of Demolition, and then it became just Crush and Smash, as we're told. It's strange just seeing here in his Crush gear. Or in his Demolition gear, I should say, as Crush. I never really think of that when I think of the wrestler Crush / Brian Adams. It's also wild that at one point in this match, Lord Alfred Hayes says that Crush is just 24 years old here. The tender age of 24, he says, to describe Demolition Crush.
Lord Al Hayes is very distracted by a nice-looking woman at ringside.
Direct quote, "Gosh, there's a nice-looking girl," Lord Al says, as Sean Mooney says nothing. I'm also taken aback by just how gargantuan Crush looks next to Shawn Michaels. It's kind of huge. Like a Billy Gunn situation where, like, when you see these guys among the normal size guy in the WWF at this time period, they just seem like a regular size guy. But then, like, if you see him against what would be considered a small guy during that time period, which now Shawn Michaels would be considered a bigger guy, but Crush just looks huge here. He dwarfs Shawn Michaels.
It's all Crush in this match until Michaels does a flip off the top, then hits a super kick. He hits a flying tackle, goes for the pin, but Crush kicks out at 0, sending Michaels out to the floor.
This is the point where, Crush comes back in. He goes for a press slam. Shawn head scissors out of the press slam, hits a drop toe hold. Lord Alfred Hayes exclaims excitedly, "Tremendous wrestling by Jannetty."
Crush then hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker,
which was pretty impressive for the WWF in 1991. And when you think about it as we go along, the offense that we saw on this show, which it's actually something I wanted to bring up outside of Shawn Michaels here in this match. It's kind of crazy how you look at the offense in the WWF in 1991, and in the majority of these matches, it really has not evolved or improved or changed much from the stuff we saw in 1982 on that All-Star Wrestling episode, or even going back to 1974 in Madison Square Garden. Like, you can see the through lines in terms of the type of wrestling in this territory, or now as it was the big national global leader in pro wrestling. It's not overly impressive.
No, especially when you look at what was going on in Japan and in the same time frame in some of the shows we reviewed. It's like a completely different universe.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've got Crush has a torture rack where he's got Shawn across his shoulders and then just drops down into another backbreaker.
Always the lamest possible thing that could come out of the torture rack position. You have so many options. Keep the man in the torture rack and get a submission. Go crazy and do a burning hammer. Fall backwards in a sort of a Samoan drop type of move from that position. Or fall to your knees with the guy still on your shoulders, and that's supposed to cause more pain.
Yeah, which I think was Nikki Bella's finisher for a while there, too. So.
Wow. I am so upset that I missed that era of the WWE.
We get a bear hug by Crush. Shawn fights out, but Crush fires Shawn into the buckles hard, and he comes bouncing far out of the corner. Incredible.
I was hoping, by the way, with that bear hug, that we would get an inset promo of Guerrilla Monsoon following up on what he said, that we'd be hearing more from him, giving a critique of that bear hug, because it was not very well executed. It was more impressive than the grounded body scissors that we had from Crush for a period of time here.
They bite each other. Lord Al Hayes then says he does not want to see this deteriorate to a clumsy brawl.
Yes, after he called it a wrestling clinic by both men. And apparently, the only way that would be possible if the WWF had mid-match changed the name of Shawn Michaels to Both Men. First name both, last name Men.
Crush goes to the top. He misses a knee drop. We get an awesome chop block by Michaels. He was going like it felt like he was going a million miles an hour because everyone else was so slow on this show.
It felt like he was beamed in from another planet. It was like everyone else was horse and buggy and he was in a Lamborghini. It was something else. It was like a Monty Brown pounce to the back of the leg.
Fuji's on the apron, distracting the referee. Crush catches Michaels trying to do a crossbody. Marty Jannetty goes off the top rope, shoves Michaels on top.
The babyface, Marty Jannetty.
The ref turns around, counts 3, and Shawn Michaels picks up the victory.
What a strange finish. We have Mr. Fuji out with Crush. Mr. Fuji never tries to interfere in this match. And we also don't have Demolition Smash out there. Crush is just, he's being mean, but he's playing it fair. We have the babyface team of the Rockers. Mr. Fuji, for some reason, distracts the ref. If I'm Crush, I am firing Mr. Fuji immediately after this match. There's no reason for him to distract the ref. And then behind the ref's back, with the ref distracted, Marty Jannetty comes off the top rope, cross bodies onto the pile, and Shawn gets the win. What a strange babyface double team. I felt like if Hulk Hogan was a tag team and did high flying, this is what he would do.
We go back to Al Hayes and Sean Mooney in the van. They're under the hood trying to work on the broken down van, as Al says he's found the problem, but he can't fix it. That's
great because Al's just, he's not getting his hands dirty. He's got the hood open, but he's just looking at it. Meanwhile, Sean Mooney is under the car, all greasy, trying to figure out a way to fix it.
We then get the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, taking on the Orient Express and Mr. Fuji in a 3-on-2 handicap match.
I feel like we're going back to WrestleMania 5 with Mr.
The
Fuji.
Powers of Pain and Mr. Fuji.
And the Powers of Pain against Demolition.
But here I was like, all right, Legion of Doom and Orient Express. This is a matchup I don't think I've seen, but I like both teams. This should be good.
Yeah.
And this tape needed something good.
Yes, it did. We see Mr. Fuji come out. He takes his robe off, and he looks no older than he did in 1982 as one half of the tag team champions with Mr. Saito. Mr. Fuji.
Those clips from the 70s of Fuji, the match we saw in the 80s, and here he looks exactly the same.
He's living the J.J. Dillon life.
So he's got his ceremonial salt. He keeps passing it back to Kato as the referee's trying to check on him. The crowd is getting fired up trying to tell the ref about it.
We should point out that this version of Orient Express is Pat Tanaka and Kato, that being Paul Diamond under a mask, reprising their team from the AWA.
Bad Company.
Yes, Bad Company. This is not the Akio Sato Pat Tanaka version of the Orient Express. I do love the Orient Express music, by the way.
Oh, yes.
It's generic solid 80s Japanese wrestling music. It is tremendous.
So Fuji then puts the salt into his waistband. We would see it later, of course. Power slam
salt in a packet. He does not throw salt at his own crotch.
The packet of salt. Yes, correct.
I feel like as a very literal man, these are things that must be pointed out.
Power slam by Animal to start the match, and then a double flapjack on Tanaka. All LOD here. Hawk's in. He's beating up both the Orient Express. Animal presses Kato over his head on the floor and throws him back inside.
Well, before any of that, how about that double backdrop? Pat Tanaka goes so high that he goes completely out of the frame, and this is not a close-up shot. And somehow in a back body drop, he gets so much air that he does an extra rotation and lands all the way on his face. If you follow us on social media, this is the GIF. This is the image. This is the video that you saw, letting you know that this is the show we're reviewing this week. I still don't understand how that happened.
One of two scary backdrops we will cover on this show. This was the first. Absolutely terrifying.
How about when Hawk tags in and like growls at Tanaka? Lord Alfred Hayes is legitimately terrified. Like he's spooked. He did not expect that. He's like, oh, what was that? And he calls it hissing. That Hawk
yes, he hissed at him. After getting thrown back in, Hawk just clotheslines him right back to the outside. Animal runs him over with a clothesline on the floor. Fuji then throws the salt in the eyes of Animal. A super kick by Tanaka. And now Fuji comes in the ring. He gets a couple of shots in. The Orient Express double team Animal. But it doesn't last long. Animal just runs both of them over with clotheslines, tags in Hawk. He runs wild, even hits Fuji. Then a Doomsday Device on Kato for the win. This was just an LOD squash.
Yeah, this was probably the most Road Warriors I've ever seen the Legion of Doom look in the WWF. We've talked about before how weird and frustrating it is seeing some of their matches where they're kind of just selling like any babyface tag team would in the WWF, getting beaten down, making a comeback, getting a win, 50-50 matches, which is not what you expect out of the Road Warriors. This was much more what I'd like to see from them. Also, just want to note and give credit to Animal looked great here. He was flying for a guy his size. We didn't get that great Animal drop kick, unfortunately, but otherwise he was just, I thought this was one of the best we've ever seen him look.
Yeah, I just wish we see this against a team not the Orient Express, because I want to see the Orient Express get some of their offense in. But
exactly.
Of
all the times, I have confidence at some point we'll get the Orient Express in their element. I still am hoping at some point the randomizer or someone who chooses to be the randomizer will give us that Royal Rumble where they open the show against the Rockers. Always say one of the best, if not the best, pay-per-view openers ever.
Oh, God. Gourmet cooking tips with the Bushwhackers. If you're dealing with the Bushwhackers in a segment on Coliseum Video, you are in for horrendous television.
Yeah, this is one of those where I can say with complete certainty that if we were not doing this podcast, if I just had my own personal randomizer for my just wrestling amusement and it landed on this show, I absolutely would have fast forwarded past this after about 30 seconds. The first minute or so was all dedicated to a bit about the Bushwhackers vigorously tossing salad, and it just got better from there.
That's right. After they threw salad around, Butch put some lettuce on his head. He's asked, what's that for? He says it's for Ron, for later on.
Groan.
Next, they have a tray of mashed potatoes. They put Bushwhacker spices into the potatoes. The spice makes Luke sneeze right into the potatoes because that's the special ingredient. Oh, it doesn't get any funnier, don't worry.
No.
They then have a tray of broccoli. And they have a problem. It makes them gassy, so we get a bunch of fart noises and Gene Okerlund trying not to puke.
Yeah, we've talked before about segments on WWF/WWE television that are a crystal clear 2020 vision into the mind of Vince McMahon, and this is, as much as anything, one of those.
It's dessert time. It's walnut surprise cake, and the surprise is they just ram cake in each other's faces. Okay.
The least surprising thing that could have happened in this segment.
and then Gene's like, hey, what about the main course? And then, like, we cut from this kitchen.
Yeah, what was this? I was very confused.
We cut from a kitchen to, like, a grill outside, and Mean Gene is no longer in his tux, but he's in bushwhacker gear. He's dressed like a bushwhacker, and they're at the grill cooking bushwhacker buzzard. And then they cut back to the kitchen where Gene's back in his tux, and the bushwhackers say they'd like to have Gene for dinner, and then they put an apple in his mouth, and Gene runs away because they wanted to eat Mean Gene for dinner. This was not
a real
funny
segment
at all.
on a pro wrestling show.
What was that?
Can you imagine? They probably made one at some point. If there's a Bushwhackers Coliseum home videotape.
Oh no! I'm like,
how bad do you want People's Be the Randomizer money to support the podcast?
Not that bad. I'll shut down this podcast. Oh, this was horrible. Yeah,
it's on a very short list of least favorite things that we, at least from my perspective,
because it wasn't even like bad funny. It was just
dumb, and it would never end. There are very few things on this show that I've been like, man, I just couldn't get anything out of. When I say on the show, I mean all the years that we've been doing this podcast. Even the worst stuff, I've been able to take something from and be like, oh, I'm glad I saw that, I guess. This is just one of those where you're like, yeah, made a lot of weird decisions in my life that led me to this moment where, as an adult human being, I am watching this, and these are minutes I will never get back of my life.
Al Hayes and Sean Mooney start walking away from the broken van. At this point, we're told we're going to get an up-close look at the Big Boss Man, who was featured on the cover of this tape. We're going to get 3 Big Boss Man matches. Holy cow.
Yeah, they tell us it's going to be this big in-depth profile of the Big Boss Man. So I'm like, oh, like this is going to be like that him training to be a guardian angel, which if you're listening in linear fashion, we just talked about and reviewed that video package leading into his debut with that character in WCW. So I'm thinking we're going to get something similar. Instead, we go to a Boss Man interview. We've got, again, the great green screen background of the prison bars and the Big Boss Man logo behind him. He says at least 4 times in this promo that he's an instrument of justice. And he also talks about cunning in criminal minds, which seems like some of the earliest evidence of completely scripted WWF promos, because there's no way Ray Traylor would have thought to say that multiple times. And then he himself informs us that we are going to see 3 of his best matches coming up. So keep that in mind. 3 of his best matches.
This is great. All right. I'm in.
We like the Big Boss Man.
We like the Big Boss Man here. So I'm in on this. It's babyface Big Boss Man at this point, of course. And he is taking on the Earthquake in the opening match. We're in Toronto, Canada here, Maple Leaf Gardens.
We are, and there are a lot of empty seats.
Holy cow. The whole second level is just empty. People dressed as chairs.
The whole second level is empty. They've got that darkened, but then even like 5, 6, 7 rows down into the lower level, the lower bowl, it's empty. Like they couldn't even darken it. They couldn't get those seats darkened. So this is shocking. I can't remember too many times that we've seen really any empty seats, much less this many from a WWF show from this time period on anything we've reviewed. This is very slow. Like this is a house show match that is making tape.
Brutally slow. Although Earthquake flexing after a power move is never not funny. I will always watch that. It's
never not funny, particularly when Lord Alfred Hayes is on commentary, because as there, like you said, there's a lockup. Earthquake aggressively throws the Boss Man back into the corner, does a double bicep, and Lord Alfred Hayes loses it and cracks me up in the process when at the end of his description of the physique of Earthquake, he says, direct quote, "There's no symmetry there," unquote. And that broke me a little bit, much like this match did, giving me 1974 Madison Square Garden WWF vibes. This is glacially slow.
Oh, yeah. Quake sits on the boss man's chest in the corner, more choking, just working over the throat. And like, I want more out of my fat guy matches than this. I want two fat guys like running into each other and doing big moves.
They're capable of it.
They are.
John Tenta is an awesome big man. Big Boss Man can move. This is during one of his more svelte phases. Like, I expected something, but they were giving us late 80s, early 90s WWF house show match here in front of a not entirely large crowd in Toronto.
Boss Man hits an enziguri, 3 clotheslines. He ties Earthquake in the ropes. So Earthquake's arms are tied in the top rope, and he's sitting on the mat with his arms out, and he's wide open. And Boss Man comes and does like a crossbody splash to the tied up Earthquake in the ropes. Highlight of the tape so far.
Oh, absolutely! This was great. Boss Man he got moving here, hit that big crossbody, like you said. He passed the Iron Mike Sharp test. He did not eat a big boot running in like Jim Powers. So good on Big Boss Man there. And then Dino Bravo appears to just spice this up even more.
He comes out and distracts the Boss Man. Earthquake hits an elbow drop and gets the pin. This is quite the showcase of the Boss Man.
Yeah, so let's recap on a couple fronts. First, again, small crowd, nothing match. This is one of 3 matches that the Big Boss Man chose to show us, yes, showing who he is as a wrestler and self-identified 3 of his best matches. He loses to the Earthquake, and it's not even via the Earthquake splash / Northern Exposure, which that would have been one of the only things that could have saved this match for me. They can't even give me that move.
No.
Instead, it is just an elbow drop.
An elbow drop defeated the Boss Man. Tugboat had to come out and make the save after this match. So he lost and got his ass kicked and had to get saved by Tugboat. This is a match where I'm like, first match. I want people to really understand what the Boss Man's all about. Put this match out there.
Yeah, this was strange. We also had a teased post-match Earthquake splash / Northern Exposure that Tugboat broke up, as if I already didn't like Tugboat enough after his terrible performance against the Undertaker. He's petitioning to get into Greg the Hammer Valentine territory for me. But from there, thankfully, the tape is momentarily saved, because here comes Bobby the Brain Heenan in full wrestling gear with a jacket that says Brain in sparkly letters on the back. And for some reason, he is holding a Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy.
I hope the Boss Man can get the win in this one. Let's find out. So Heenan's out there with the wrestling buddy. He grabs the microphone.
I have a very important announcement to make.
Oh, what is this?
What has transpired between myself and the Big Boss Man is totally a mistake on my part.
There you are, you see?
I, at this time, would like to sincerely apologize to the Big Boss Man and to his lovely mother.
You're buying
I'm sincerely sorry.
Well, yes,
I'm
he's
sorry.
saying this in front of a lot of people here.
And I'd like to apologize to every mother here and everyone that
That's really
has a mother.
eating
You know
humble
how much
pie.
they mean to you. Now, I have sent a dozen roses to the Big Boss Man's mom, which she will receive tomorrow.
I think
and
it's
right
a
here
little
I
late.
have a WWF wrestling
Chip.
buddy of Hulk Hogan. And the Boss Man, as you know, is on the Hulkamaniacs at Survivor Series Thursday night. I would like to give him this gift right now to his lovely mother. And let's forget the match, cancel the match. We can work things out.
Well, I think that is Bobby the Brain Heenan's answer.
I'm sorry.
The entrance music of the Big Boss Man and the cold, steely stare of the Big Boss Man as he makes his way to the ring. I don't think he's ready to accept his apology.
They were really honest from the heart apologies. I mean, if I were the Big Boss Man, I would show people how forgiving I could
Wait a
be.
minute, Lloyd Alfred Hayes. For weeks now, the Big Boss Man has heard the derogatory comments he's made about his mother.
To Cobb County, Georgia. She'll get him tomorrow.
See?
Whatever I said about your mother was off color. It was totally uncalled for. I'm sorry. Let's forget the match and everything. How about it?
Well, maybe he will. Maybe the Boss Man
I'm
will
sorry.
apologize also. for his forcing Heenan into this match, shake hands and go back to the dressing room. That's the best thing that could happen.
I don't think the former prison guard is in a very forgiving mood. And he is showing his...
Awesome promo from Heenan. Just makes this confrontation here. This was nothing without Bobby Heenan begging for his life.
Yes, and it's referencing, if you were watching WWF television during this time period, Bobby Heenan just relentlessly insulted the Big Boss Man's mother every single week, nonstop, and not even just contained to the segments that Big Boss Man was on. It could be Jim Brunzell against Iron Mike Sharp, and Bobby Heenan would spend at least 1 minute insulting Big Boss Man's mother.
Yeah, so as soon as Boss Man takes the wrestling buddy, shoves it in Heenan's face, Heenan hits the Boss Man with the mic repeatedly. Now the bell rings at this point, and the match starts, and then the Boss Man nails Heenan with a nightstick. Heenan does a full flip on this nightstick hit, and I start laughing because I'm like, did the Boss Man just lose his second straight match on the Boss Man? On this Boss Man tape?
Yeah, that would be fitting for what we've seen so far. I just love seeing Bobby Heenan sell here. It's something that people that never saw him as a manager or a wrestler wouldn't necessarily
takes
know.
an incredible beating. It's amazing.
I mean, I grew up literally my formative years of being a wrestling fan. While I didn't see what I'm about to describe, my dad, when I was a small child, would describe to me the beatings that Bobby Heenan would take in the late 60s and early 70s at the hands of Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher and all these guys at the International Amphitheater in Chicago. That's what my dad grew up watching. So seeing Bobby Heenan very, very late into his run of ever being able to take bumps, because very shortly after this, I mean, he wouldn't even be able to be a manager anymore. We had in early 92, him sort of managing Ric Flair, but then because he couldn't take bumps and he didn't feel like he could do what the job required, he kind of had Mr. Perfect as the more direct manager.
So Boss Man pins Heenan after the nightstick attack. He goes to handcuff him, but Haku makes the save. Boss Man makes a quick comeback on Haku. He handcuffs Heenan and Haku together. Mr. Perfect comes in. He attacks the Boss Man. The Boss Man's able to make his own comeback, punches Mr. Perfect, who goes up and over the top to the outside, and the Boss Man celebrates in the ring.
So he picked up the win over Bobby Heenan.
In what must have been a no disqualification match.
Apparently. It's definitely not the referee from the
opener. Yeah.
No, definitely not that referee. Although he may just now have called for the disqualification as we record this. So he's 1-1. He's lost to Earthquake via a non-finisher, and he's defeated Bobby Heenan. So the rubber match in this best of 3 series with 3 different opponents is against a version of a wrestler I had completely forgotten about. It's the Barbarian. I definitely remember him, but it's Loincloth Barbarian.
It is a lot of fur on the Barbarian here, and we're back in Toronto. The house lights are real dim, so I can't tell how empty it is compared to the last match we saw here.
It feels more full, but that's because, like you said, it's even more dim, clearly a reaction to how the previous show looked.
The Barbarian is jacked here. He is enormous.
His neck, I don't know that I've ever, it makes Davey Boy Smith's neck look small. He is the biggest I've ever seen him by a wide margin.
And these two guys, again, both are very agile, big guys that can do cool stuff. We got none of that here. Oh. Just lots of stalling. Nothing happening.
No, this was terrible. This every bit as much this could have been like Killer Khan and Blackjack Lonzo.
Oh, totally. Bossman
nothing.
He missed an avalanche in the corner. On the outside, the Barbarian rammed him into the post. Back inside, more Barbarian beatdown. At this point, we get a bear hug by the Barbarian, and Lord Al Hayes points out that it's a little low on the back, but it's effective.
Yes, he recognizes the same thing that Guerrilla Monsoon does, but he's more magnanimous, he's more lenient, he's more tolerant of this style of bear hug. At one point, Barbarian is going for something. And this is the direct quote from Lord Alfred Hayes. Barbarian placing him for sort of a situation move here. God bless Lord Alfred Hayes. Like the idea of him and Sean Mooney calling matches together, not just doing the skits, but calling these matches together is something else.
Yeah, Boss Man makes a comeback, hits an enziguri. He hits a hot shot, gets a 2 count. The Barbarian barely got his hand on the bottom rope. Boss Man goes to the top, hits a crossbody off the top, but the Barbarian rolls through, and I thought Barbarian was going to get the pin in this Boss Man showcase.
Yeah,
but,
I was
2.
I was convinced. It was impressive though, that crossbody off the top. Like you could tell Big Boss Man was dying to be able to do cool stuff. Like at each of these matches, well, not the Heenan match obviously, but the Earthquake match and this one. Towards the end, like he finally feels like, you know, the chains are off a little bit and he can do some stuff. Seeing him fly through the air with a top rope crossbody was pretty impressive.
So Boss Man goes for a sunset flip. The Barbarian drops down to get the pin with his knees on the Boss Man's shoulders. He starts flexing, and the Boss Man rolls him up into completing the sunset flip, gets the victory. Haku then runs in, and we get a Faces of Fear beatdown on the Boss Man.
Yes, an early Faces of Fear with loincloth Barbarian and happy bright turquoise island print capris Haku. So a little bit different look.
They leave the Boss Man laying in what it has to be the weirdest special feature for a wrestler I've ever seen on a Coliseum video. That's it. That's how it ended.
Yes. So recap. First match against the Earthquake. Boss Man loses to a move that isn't a finisher, gets beaten down afterward, and has to get saved by Tugboat. Match 2, he somehow is able to eke out a victory over Bobby the Brain Heenan. Match 3, he gets a flash pin on the Barbarian and then gets left laying afterward. This was what they thought was the best showcase of the Big Boss Man.
Sean Mooney's in the creek trying to make his way through the woods, and then he gets made fun of by Al Hayes for not using the footbridge that's right over here.
This all felt like a metaphor for all of us having to watch this tape.
We then go to Huntsville, Alabama for a WWF Championship match. Oh, I was not they did not tell me this at the top of the tape that we were going to get a championship. It's our second title match of the night.
There's good reason why when we see who is in this match. It's also interesting to see the WWF at the Von Braun Civic Center in Huntsville, Alabama, because I always associate that with WCW TV taping. So it's strange to see it here full and brightly lit for the WWF. And wow, what a combination of men we have here in the main event of this tape for the most prestigious title in all the World Wrestling Federation.
The challenger is Sergeant Slaughter. This is Iraqi sympathizer era Sergeant Slaughter with his manager, General Adnan.
We have seen far too much of Sergeant Slaughter on the podcast this season.
So much. And his theme song is a long, never-ending drum roll.
Literally, my notes say his music is just a never-ending drum roll. Jesus Christ,
the worst.
It is.
So on the
audio torture.
We've got the bookends here. So we've got Mr. Perfect's theme song, and we've got Sergeant Slaughter's. Yes. It has to be one of the worst theme songs in history.
It is. Then an iconic theme song of the Ultimate Warrior hits. Ultimate Warrior runs out to the ring, and the first thing I notice is, oh God. This is the period where when Warrior held a title, whether it was the Intercontinental or here the World title, the WWF Championship, it was a different actual color belt that the plates would be on. Here it is a white belt backing the winged eagle. This is so weird.
I'm okay with the white. I never liked he would eventually lose the title. Spoiler alert, he doesn't lose the title here. He would eventually lose the title at the Royal Rumble. To Sergeant Slaughter ahead of WrestleMania 7, and Warrior had like a purple, or I think there's controversy of whether it was purple or blue, the leather on the belt, and he wins that. He loses the title. Slaughter wins that belt and like never went back to the black. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
why do you wear the purple belt?
I feel like, so what is the date for this? Do you know the date for this match? Because I feel like this might have actually been, well, no, I guess this would have been before he won it. Yeah,
this is before he won it. This had to be like a house show run up to their Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, they needed practice, and man, they needed a lot more practice. This is not good. It's also amazing, and it shows how we've talked about before in some ways how the WWF and Vince McMahon haven't changed much. This is one way in which they have. Sergeant Slaughter is so old looking here and just looks so out of place, even in WWF 1991, but he is in a position to be challenging for the title and will be winning the title soon. The only enjoyable thing about this match is one of the first spots where Warrior hits some kicks, a knee lift, a punch. He sends Sergeant Slaughter over the top rope, and Slaughter goes over the top rope in such a manner that his giant chin gets caught on the bottom rope. This is amazing.
Yes, I couldn't believe that spot. That had to be like someone had to bet him that he couldn't do a spot where he went over the top rope and hooked his giant chin on the rope somehow. But he did.
It's more impressive and more precise and more 1 in a million than every incredible high-flying spot you have seen in your life. I am more impressed by this than any 630 or shooting star press. And I enjoy myself some high-flying, but this was amazing.
So the move... The most terrifying move, we mentioned the earlier backdrop. We've got another one here where Sergeant Slaughter's putting the boots to the Warrior. Slaughter then gets sent to the corner. He comes out and gets backdropped, but doesn't flip over. He is parallel to the wrestling mat, doesn't flip over, and just goes right down face first. This was terrifying and brutal. I thought he was going to break his neck.
The only thing I can compare this to is that Chris Benoit Sabu spot from ECW.
Yes, yeah.
Which it's the only thing that you could possibly compare that match and this match. But yeah, I am shocked. Maybe he landed on his chin and it absorbed the impact.
Oh, this match had a double clothesline spot where both men were down. This match did not need that spot at all.
No, it did not need that spot. It did not need anywhere near the amount of time that it got, and it didn't get that much time. The thing that's fascinating, though, watching this is it's kind of a microcosm for Warrior as champion, and you can see 100% why his reign didn't work. And yeah, part of it is being programmed with a guy like Slaughter. Why his main event run in general didn't work is that he had he had the characteristics of Hulk Hogan as far as being this big muscle-bound guy, power moves, not the best wrestler, but could get by with visual charisma. People loved him, but the problem was, unlike Hulk Hogan, he was horrendous at selling. Hulk Hogan is, for whatever you want to say about him, he is a massively underrated seller. When he's getting beaten down and reaching over the ropes or reaching to the fans and the anguish in his face, Warrior has none of that. He just lays there while he's getting hit. At least Bill Goldberg would shake his head a little bit, like he's trying to shake the cobwebs out. Warrior can't even be bothered to do that.
No, the only thing Warrior shook were the ropes as he got out of this camel clutch and got back up to his feet, hits a few clotheslines, shoulder tackle, big splash. The Ultimate Warrior wins, still the WWF champion. This match was horrible. Sergeant Slaughter did not do a wrestling move until halfway through this match. He literally wrestled the whole first half of this match with punches and kicks.
I wanted to see the noogie as a finisher, like we saw on a previous show that we watched for this podcast. My favorite thing about this match, other than the chin spot, is Sergeant Slaughter, like a great old school grizzled wily veteran, kicking out at 3.0001.
Yeah, horrible match. Then we cut back to Al Hayes and Sean Mooney in the forest.
Well, before that, Sean Mooney sends us to that segment by saying, this was a Coliseum exclusive that we will long remember. I do not think so.
No. What a lovely day in the forest this has been, says Al Hayes. Sean Mooney then signs off saying, thanks for watching the tape. And at the same time, he then loses Al Hayes while he was doing the sign off. and Sean Mooney staggers off into the woods as the tape ends.
Yeah.
Horrible. This tape is not super. This was so bad.
I think this might be the worst of the Coliseum home videos that we've watched. And that might be recency bias, but even the other ones that we watched where it was like 40 or 50 wacky moments or unusual moments, at least everything was only 2 or 3 minutes long. So the bad stuff didn't outweigh its welcome. It didn't overstay its welcome, I should say. And then you're on to the next thing. There are some things here that really, really lingered. And then the interstitials, the segments with Sean Mooney and Lord Alfred Hayes really were not very good at all.
Favorite thing on this show? In ring and out of the ring.
Well, I mean, into going out of the ring all in one motion would be Sergeant Slaughter's chin getting caught.
Sure.
Shawn Michaels stood out on this show.
Boy, did he.
Looking great. Worst thing in terms of in-ring had to be both of those horrifying backdrops. The Pat Tanaka thing was so out of control, but he being such a great wrestler and bumper and pro just figured out in midair how to be able to take this harmlessly and sort of like a knees/face first bump, whereas the Warrior match with Sarge, that backdrop was just terrifying. As far as a worst match, it's really hard to say because this tape had Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter and Undertaker versus
Tugboat. Oh my God,
Tugboat.
so bad.
Plus it had that Big Boss Man Earthquake match.
Oh, so bad. So many bad matches.
I will have to say the world title match because it was the world title match and it was as bad as those other two that we mentioned.
Yeah, that Earthquake.
Perfect was good in the opener. Perfect was
so
good.
I think that's the best. That's the best thing on this show, I think, is Mr. The Opener with Mr. Perfect and Kerry Von Erich. I think that had to be the best in-ring on this show.
I would say that.
Bobby Heenan was all honorable mention for the best in-ring.
Legion of Doom looking like the Road Warriors was good.
That's good too. So there was a couple things we enjoyed, but
enjoyed in bold quotation. There were things we could find that were slightly better than the other things that were also bad. I would say though, if you're looking at one thing that was actively good on this show, it was Bobby Heenan's in-ring promo before the Boss Man.
Yeah, absolutely, and you heard it here. So. With that, we're going to call it a podcast. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias at WrestleAtRandom on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/WrestlingAtRandom as well. We have a Patreon. That's how you can support the show. Patreon.com/WrestlingAtRandom, where you get bonus audio content, an additional episode of this podcast every single week over in the paid feed. So you can also subscribe over there, get all the bonus content. If you subscribe today, it literally unlocks all 50 plus episodes at this point in time. Could be even more by the time you listen to this podcast, all waiting for you for the low cost over there, whether it's Patreon, Apple Podcasts, or some new paywall of choice. It's all there waiting for you. You can also be the randomizer over there. You can pick a show for us to watch. All that, t-shirts and more, go over to patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom. If you can't support the show financially, that's okay as well. Wrestling fans know other wrestling fans, so tell your wrestling fan friends about the show. Or tell one of your friends who used to be a wrestling fan about the show. They might take a trip down memory lane with us as well.
Yeah, I hope you've never gone and talk about trips. I hope you've never gone on a star-crossed road trip the way Lord Alfred Hayes and Sean Mooney did here. I don't know, maybe this podcast can bring back some memories of something like that. But man, this has drained me. This is what the randomizer does. Sometimes it gives us great stuff. Sometimes it gives us this. We have no control over it. I feel like sometimes though, the worst shows bring out the best podcasts. Hopefully that was the case with this week. And I really hope we don't have Super Tape 3 or 5 coming up. We need a little bit of a break.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Remember all the links we just described, everything, the entire back catalog, all the previous shows we mentioned. You want to hear Guerrilla Monsoon talk about how poorly applied bear hugs are? That's the Royal Albert Hall Coliseum videotape. You can hear that review all in our archives, wrestlingatrandom.com. Waiting for you right now. With that, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I want to thank everyone for listening. Talk to you again next time.